Waste is one of the UK's big issues as we move from the throwaway age into one of conserving resources and recovering waste materials. No longer is it acceptable simply to tip what we don't want into holes in the ground. Finding new and more sustainable solutions is one of the major challenges of our time. Mechanical biological treatment, MBT, is one of a number of new technologies attracting growing interest, not just from councils needing to divert their waste away from tips, but from companies keen to use waste as a fuel. CEMEX UK is one such company. Each of its 3 cement works is now successfully harnessing household waste as a fuel for its kilns. The company calls this new fuel ClimaFuel and firmly regards it as the way ahead. But before we focus on what's happening here in the UK, let's take a brief look at what CEMEX is doing in Germany, where ClimaFuel has been used successfully for more than 10 years. Germany had some 40,000 landfill sites in the 1970s, but it now has just 350. With landfill now forbidden for household waste, MBT has become an attractive alternative that is widely welcomed by local communities. This CEMEX plant at Collenbach now takes up to 90,000 tonnes of waste a year, produced by a population of 500,000 people. The fuel is produced at this MBT plant, which is typical of the approach now being taken in the UK, where the use of such technology is gathering pace. What is important about MBT is that it plays its part only when every effort has been made to recycle. If you recycle your cans and bottles, then they won't end up here. And many of the recyclables that do still find their way into people's bins will be picked up in the MBT process and will then still get recycled. This is where the process starts, a reception hall where lorries deliver the waste. Unlike landfill, it all takes place in a sealed building rather than outdoors. The whole building is under what is known as negative air pressure. In other words, air is sucked inwards so that any odours or dust cannot get out. The process is highly automated. Large cranes transfer the waste, first into a preliminary shredder and then into one of a series of pits. Here, air is constantly blown through the waste to dry it and to speed up the natural biological process that breaks it down. After about a week, the dried waste moves on to the mechanical end of the process. The task here is to put the material through a series of highly efficient sieves that separate the inert content into different sizes and remove what can still be recycled. After further shredding of what remains, you have a light, fluffy end product which looks like shredded paper. It may include elements of cardboard, wood, carpet, textiles and light plastics. It is now ClimaFuel, and it has a high calorific value, which makes it a good substitute for the coal and petcoke more traditionally used in cement kilns. It represents a valuable new use for an otherwise wasted resource. But it also helps to reduce costs in an energy-intensive industry and so protects the future of its plants and the jobs they provide. But there is also a powerful environmental case for ClimaFuel as a clean, green alternative. First, cutting the use of fossil fuels saves them for the future. It also reduces emissions of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere created by the burning of coal and petcoke. Rigorous trials are required by the Environment Agency before any such fuel can be introduced. They have shown consistently that they improve environmental performance by reducing emissions of oxides of nitrogen. Meanwhile, with reduced volumes going to landfill, less methane is released to atmosphere. This is critical as methane has more than 20 times the effect of CO2 in terms of global warming. Mechanical biological treatment is a process that is now quickly gathering pace in the UK. This £45 million plant at Frog Island serves approaching 1 million residents in East London. It treats up to 180,000 tonnes of household waste a year and turns it into fuel which is increasingly in demand by industry. Its value can be judged from the fact that by 2016, some 67% of East London's waste will be diverted from landfill and turned into a resource. Few councillors in the UK have studied waste issues more closely than Kay Twitchin OBE. She is a member of Essex County Council and is on the board of both the Environment Agency and the Waste Resource Action Programme.
I mean, there are two things here, aren't they? The first is that it's regulated very closely by the Environment Agency, so the stuff that comes out the top of the chimney, which is what worries people, is monitored constantly, and the standards are very high. So people can have confidence from that point of view. But the other thing that's important is that by using refuse-derived fuel, you are displacing fossil fuels. So you're not bringing coal across the world from Australia, you're not using oil, which is a very valuable resource, you're not using gas. So you've not only got the value of the fact that you're getting rid of a problem, but you're also displacing a valuable resource. I think MBT is a super technology. I think it's one of the ones that many local authorities are looking at, recognising they need to get away from landfill, recognising their environmental responsibilities, and also recognising that these services are very expensive and they have to be done in a cost-effective way. Recycling will always be the first choice for local authorities. The public like it, and we are conserving valuable resources which should not be destroyed. MBT is one of the other options, and I think most responsible local authorities will want to look at it very carefully. It does provide an environmentally friendly solution to what is a huge problem for them now that we can't landfill anymore.
At the moment, CEMEX UK's 3 works take their Climafuel from plants like Frog Island and others that have quickly emerged in South Wales, Merseyside, Scotland and the East Midlands. At Rugby in Warwickshire, CEMEX UK is building the future of one of Europe's most sophisticated cement plants around 2 alternative fuels, Climafuel and chipped tyres. Together, they could replace up to 55% of coal, and some 30% of that would come from Climafuel. An MBT plant in Warwickshire would satisfy the Rugby plant's Climafuel needs, while also helping to address the challenge of reducing landfill. In doing so, it would provide a local solution to a local problem. Meanwhile, at Barrington in Cambridgeshire, the company has received permission from the Environment Agency for the long-term use of Climafuel. Ultimately, it is hoped this plant will draw its Climafuel from a planned MBT at nearby Waterbeach, which will serve the needs of households over a wide surrounding area. CEMEX UK's 3rd plant is at South Ferriby in North Lincolnshire. It has been successfully using Climafuel here since 2006. The plans for the future include increasing the level of Climafuel so that ultimately it provides up to 60% of overall fuel needs. Once again, it is hoped that ultimately supplies will come from the immediate area. The company recognises the need to communicate with its neighbours about its plans for alternative fuels.
Managing energy and managing waste are extremely important in that process. In order for us as a company to understand the issues involved with the community, we need to have an effective dialogue. This is what consultation and engagement is all about. We need to have that dialogue with our communities, and we welcome it.
The company's technical experts have confidence in Climafuel on all fronts.
I think the first point to make is that within the company we have extensive experience now in burning Climafuel. We've been burning in Germany now for over 10 years and in the UK now for over 18 months. And this has allowed us to measure properly the performance of our kilns when burning this material. And it's quite clear that in terms of emissions, firstly, the performance has been excellent, and indeed the emissions of oxides of nitrogen have reduced significantly whilst burning Climafuel. On top of this, we're seeing that the kilns are performing at true world-class benchmark level, so we're seeing an improved performance as well when burning the fuel. Clearly the burning of Climafuel is a win-win situation for both ourselves and the community. When you consider the cement industry, we are an energy-intensive industry, so displacing fossil fuels with a waste-derived fuel, which is a sustainable fuel, is a much better way forward. In terms of the community, the material would be coming from the municipal wastes which are generated by this community. If we didn't take this material, it would go to landfill. So what we're doing is assisting the community in diverting material away from landfill, which is both a government and an EU target. So in summary, when we consider the burning of clamor fuel, my view is that clamor fuel is a clean and green fuel and is clearly a fuel for the future.